like unnecessarily edgelord.
Welcome to the Less Than a Day podcast. Don't ask us to explain the name. We're not going to. I'm Kay.
I'm Kiko.
And we're here to talk about the things that interest us. Mainly books, but movies, TV shows, geeky things. We're going to start off with our first segment, which is current events. This is where we review what we've been reading or watching or just generally observing the past week. So what have you been up to, Kiko?
I started and finished One Piece in the span of one night. I stayed up until 4:30 a.m. watching it, and I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did.
Okay, so to be clear, you mean the live action Netflix show.
Because there's no way I'm going to start that whole entire anime.
Well, are you into anime even? I feel like we don't talk about anime all that much.
The thing is, I tried in middle school. I read Fruit Baskets. Do you know Fruit Baskets?
Yes.
I read that series, and I sort of buddy read it with a friend. And I think she enjoyed it more than I did. That was the first time I'm like, okay, I don't think anime or manga was my thing. I didn't watch the anime for Fruit Baskets, but I did read the entirety of the manga. The next one I got into was Fairy Tail.
I love Fairy Tail.
I think I read quite far into that, and I actually watched quite a bit of it, and for some reason just stopped.
I mean, there's
cold turkey.
There was
no reason for it.
There is a lot of it. It's the same. I think that's the problem with a lot of these is that there's so many episodes, which with our short attention span.
Yeah, and the problem is I love long form content on YouTube, so it's polarizing. But I put those on ×2 or ×1.5.
So One
Piece.
What'd you think?
One Piece, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I didn't expect that. I had a feeling I would like it because I enjoy pirate world, pirate lore or whatever. I really love Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
Right.
I like that sort of world. And so I knew I would enjoy it, but I didn't know I'd enjoy it this much. Definitely one of the big factors was the attractiveness of this.
Dude, there is absolutely no reason for each one of those characters to be as hot as they are. And for what?
Zoro? Yes.
Dude.
Sanji? Yes. Nami? Yes. Luffy is, he gives me little brother vibes, so I'm not...
I have a lot of little brothers, so it kind of does feel a little...
I would adopt him into being my little brother, but I don't feel attracted to him. He's a little too naive and childish.
That being said, have you seen what the original characters look like?
I've seen how Luffy looks like. I'm glad they made the decisions that they did for live action. I've seen Zoro and Sanji I think I saw them in a picture very briefly, and that's it. So I don't really have anything to go off of as to a comparison. Yeah, the attractiveness, big factor. Wait, who's the character? Usopp?
Yes.
Okay, I want to like him so much. I love the humor he brings. He doesn't really do anything in the live action, at least. I don't know how controversial this is, but he hasn't really done anything. And he came in earlier than Sanji too, and Sanji has done more than him, in my opinion.
I only watched a couple episodes of the anime a long time ago. It never really interested me. At the time, I was watching a lot more short but intense anime. So a lot of murder type stories, a lot of battles to the death. And so something that was long form and adventurous, like One Piece at the time, didn't interest me as much. So I didn't get very far. I don't remember him being particularly useful, though. I'm pretty sure his episode was so boring that that's one of the things that made me not want to keep reading or watching it. So I couldn't tell you. You'd have to ask our resident One Piece expert. I will say that character design translated to the actor is wild.
Really?
Have you not seen Usopp?
In the
anime?
No, not at all. No, not at all.
He's a little special looking. He's a little special looking. Hang on.
Oh, yes. He is so special indeed.
That nose.
I'm so glad they made the decisions that they did.
Yeah. I think he does.
Because he's good looking.
On the show, he is.
Yeah. Because of his actions or lack thereof, I don't feel attracted. But Nami slays. She eats everything that she does. She just eats.
I feel like she's a little bit moodier in the live action than she is in the anime. Because in the anime, she, at least for the first couple of episodes, she seemed a little bit more like that might just be like a women in anime type vibe, though. Of they're all just a little bit tsundere.
Yeah,
our One Piece expert is shaking her head like I'm wrong.
Our One Piece expert is in the room as we're talking about this.
Is she moody as moody as the live action? Okay, well I guess she is.
That's confirmation.
Yeah, she gives me edgelord vibes. Not as much as Zoro does, but
Zoro's like unnecessarily edgelord. And for what is what he's getting.
I kind of love it.
From what we've seen from his background, he doesn't need to be as edgelord. Oh, right. Full spoilers for everything we ever talk about.
Yeah, probably should have said that up top. And we may also just be misremembering half the stuff we talk about as well.
Oh, yeah, so everything we say might be false too. We might be just lying to you.
You'll never know. That's the fun of listening to us talk.
Yeah, we're just spinning stories as we go.
So what do you think? Are you going to watch season 2 when it comes out?
Oh, I am waiting for season 2. On Netflix, a new adventure is coming, and I'm ready for that new adventure.
So our One Piece expert did tell me that it's going to get significantly harder for them to produce after this point, that they've done kind of the easier stuff now, and like the next section of the anime is going to be very hard to translate to live action. I don't know if that's because of the content in terms of enemies that they're fighting, or I believe the season ends with them
defeating.
It ends with them saying that they're going to go up a waterfall that's like going the wrong way or something, or like through a mountain.
Yeah. I think I read some sort of, I don't think it was a spoiler, but I think I read something somewhere that I kind of know what's going to happen. Like, not know what's going to happen, but I know what those, like, mountains are.
Right, but what I mean more is, like, that's going to be a hard thing for them to produce live action.
In terms of, like, CG and stuff.
Yes. Okay. I think it's going to get harder for them, so I feel like the time between seasons is going to be no.
It's going to come. It's going to come soon, and I'm waiting for it.
That's what I'm hoping to. I loved it, so.
It's going to come soon.
So, for my current events, this week I went to see the FNAF movie, and I know it's been out for like a while at this point, but I wanted to go see it with my best friend because she introduced me to FNAF a long time ago, so I was waiting until we were in the same place. And I have some thoughts. It's fun. How much do you know about FNAF?
I think you explained some lore to me, so I know sort of like the most basic about it. And that's it. And then other than that, I know nothing about it because I don't do scary.
Yeah, I don't really do scary either. I'm not a fan. I don't mind reading horror, actually. I feel it's kind of fun to read horror, even.
I want to try reading horror because I have been wanting to read the Stephen King book, Dark Tower, I think.
That's not horror, I think. I'm pretty sure it's just fancy.
Oh. Well, I don't know, because then I do read Wikipedia plots because I'm fascinated by horror, and I'm fine, but sometimes I'm a little creeped out, so I don't know about it.
I don't mind horror elements when I'm reading. I've played a couple of horror games in terms of D&D games, tabletop RPG games, not video games. I don't do horror video games. I just don't like being jump scared, which is why I don't watch a lot of FNAF video content, like gameplay content. But I do love listening to the game theories because I love a good story. And up until a certain point, FNAF lore is a good story. Right up until Pizzeria Simulator, I think it's a cohesive, really interesting story that the writers of the game absolutely did not come up with. I'm convinced that the entirety of FNAF lore comes from theorists, not just MatPat and game theory, but theorists online, the online community. I think they pick apart the story elements in each of the games, they analyze things frame by frame, and then they generate a story that somehow the game developers are using to backtrack and create lore. Mm-hmm. I'm not convinced that they had any of this pre-planned because they wanted to end the games with the 4th game. They wanted it to be the end of the series, but then it just became so successful and it kept going and going.
Sarah J. Maas.
As a movie, it actually stands alone. You don't need to know any FNAF lore for the movie. In fact, I think knowing FNAF lore makes it harder to watch almost because you keep expecting things to happen that don't. It's not even scary. Like, you could absolutely go watch it. And I think they did that on purpose. I'm not sure. I didn't research this in any way. I very rarely do. But the movie's rated PG-13, I think because they knew that a lot of teenagers were going to want to come see this because of how big FNAF is. So it's not very gory. It's not very scary. I expected way more jump scares, and there weren't.
Did you like the fact that it wasn't very gory, not very jump scary?
I feel kind of two ways about it, because I don't want to be scared. Walking into that movie, I was just, I have to watch this because this was a big part of my teenage years, you know? So I need to see it. But at the same time, I don't want to sit here and piss my pants or something, you know? But all of the scary scenes, we were kind of laughing through them because they're animatronics. I mean, I think they said they didn't use any CG either.
Oh, wow.
So it was...
Maybe that's also why they couldn't do certain things.
It could be, but it was only rated PG. And there are death scenes that happen in there. There are people who get chomped in half by these animatronics. That does happen, and there is blood in there, but the sort of creepy element of the games, I think, didn't translate as well into the movie, because there's like a sort of undertone of eeriness in FNAF that I don't know necessarily translated all that well into the movie. The element of, oh, there are these dead kids around becomes more of a fun hangout with your ghost pals because of them bringing the little sister character into it, instead of what happened to these kids. I think they started to build a mystery, and then it sort of got lost in the plot a little bit. And I think that the final sort of confrontation with William Afton at the very end, it felt like it started off with a little bit of build-up to that, but then they lost the build-up over the course of the movie. There was way too much of the little sister hanging out with the animatronics.
The little sister of the security guard, right?
Of the security guard, who is
and
not...
the William person, is he like the creator or whatever?
Yeah, so in the... Like, a very, very, very brief summary of FNAF is just that there's this guy, William Afton, and he and his business partner make these Chuck E. Cheese-esque animatronics.
I hate Chuck E. Cheese.
As you should. But they make these Chuck E. Cheese-esque animatronics, and this guy, William Afton, for a variety of reasons, kills a bunch of kids and stuffs them into these suits. And then the ghosts of the kids possesses the suits. And they become sort of evil at night, and so he hires a security guard to look after the pizzeria, and every night the security guard has to keep an eye on these animatronics and keep them from killing him and make it through the week and survive. That's it. There's a whole complicated lore to that. There's ideas of who the security guard is. Apparently it's his son, who's potentially already sort of dead, and so you're playing as kind of an undead guy in the first game. Oh. It's complicated, but none of that is in the movie. In the movie, the guy is unrelated except that his brother was one of the victims. Not one of the main 5 victims, but just one of the victims. And I thought they were actually going to do more with that. I assumed that he was going to be Golden Freddy and that was going to show up at the end in there somewhere, which never happened.
So he's just the dude.
The brother, there was one scene with the It's Me, which I think was supposed to suggest it. But there was no... I expected it to be really cliche, so I don't know if I should be more impressed that they didn't do it cliche and have the dead brother, come and save them, or I should be disappointed.
Like you're disappointed in that they unintentionally made it not cliche. So it wasn't an intentional not cliche, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like they didn't do this...
I literally... Because at one point during the movie, I whispered to my friend, it's not over yet because Golden Freddy hasn't popped out to save his ass, you know? But it never happened. And I think they also set it up for a second movie, which I think is fine.
Like a horror franchise, is that what they're hoping
yeah, I mean, that's what happened with the games, right? And it was wildly successful, the movie. It made 10 times what they spent on it.
Oh, so. This movie?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Good for them.
Yeah.
Good for Josh Hutcherson.
Yeah. He has the little sister in the movie, and when he walks in the initial scene, they don't confirm that it's his sister just yet. And she's not old. She's 10 or something, 8 to 10. And so when he walks in, and For a split second, I'm like, is that his kid? No, he's too young to have a kid. Please, I'm not that old yet. But it's not.
I'm just glad he's getting roles other than he's
Hunger
getting
Games.
roles. Because I haven't seen him since, like, PETA.
Yeah, I'm hoping this kind of revives his career a little bit.
The whole thing with Logan Lerman, he disappeared after Percy Jackson.
As he
I mean,
should.
I haven't seen.
He popped up recently for something. I feel like I saw him. Maybe I just saw his like interviews.
Or maybe I don't know what you're talking about. I saw him for something recently.
Yeah.
So that was FNAF?
That was FNAF. Overall, I think it was a good movie. I had a good time watching it. So I'm not
I mean,
disappointed.
that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you were saying things about knowing the game or knowing the lore before watching something like this. I like going into things with a lot of game theory that had a game before it. D&D, that's the thing. I know some about D&D, but I obviously haven't played much, or I don't know a lot. So the D&D movie for me was very enjoyable. So I think that's the thing about this. If you don't know a lot about it, you get to enjoy a movie more because you're not thinking about, oh, it should have this, it should be this, it should, yeah. You just sort of enjoy it like that.
Like me in the Avatar The Last Airbender movie, which I might just cut that out because I don't want people to crucify me for liking that as a kid.
I enjoyed it as a kid because I watched it before
The show?
The show. I didn't even know the show existed.
Yeah, me neither.
And then people told me about it way later, and I'm like, or. And then I watched it, and it was brilliant. It was a great time in my life. My brother and I watched it together. We had so much fun. We watched a lot of animated stuff together. We watched the X-Men. It was on like YouTube, and we watched that whole thing together and the Avatar together. It was a time that I enjoyed.
That's nice.
Yeah. And we would rewatch these things over and over again. We watched that X-Men series at least 10 times for a reason.
But yeah, that's all I have to say on FNAF. Usually we want to talk about the books that we've been reading during our current events segment.
And we do read a lot of books.
We do read a lot of books. This last week has been a travel week, so I don't know that I've read necessarily as much beyond just finishing the Kate Daniels book, which I think I had not finished the last time we were talking about it. But I finished book 1.
You have a long way to go, man.
Yeah, that's Kate Daniels, Ilona Andrews. I believe the first book is Magic Bites.
Yes.
I just finished that. And it was good. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, we'll probably talk more about that later on.
I read all the spin-off books, too. Urban fantasy series are really long, and so I enjoy urban fantasy a lot. And so I read everything, and then I read everything after that.
Yeah, that's what's really surprising. A lot of these series have 10, 20 books in them.
But for some reason, I'm able to read them all.
Well, not just that, but I expect if you're going to have 20 books in a series, I expect each book to be very short, but they're not. They're like full-size books, but there's 20 of them.
Oh, yeah.
Which is wild to me.
I don't know how people write so much. How do they come up with these ideas?
It takes effort, dedication, skill.
It's a husband-wife writing team, so I mean, good for them for like if they're like both married and it's personal life and work. I feel like something.
No separation.
I know, but they've written so many series and stuff.
Yep.
I like a lot of their series. Some I care for less, but
yeah, I think we'll talk about probably the Innkeeper series too.
Yeah,
a little bit later. But I think we can move on from our current events to the main topic for today, which is I had a question for you to sort of start off our first episode here and get a feeler out for what our preferences are, our tastes in books are, just really set the theme for us. So what elements of a story are the most important to you? What makes a good story? What do you look for? When you're reading the little blurb on the back of a book jacket, what keywords are you looking for as to whether you're going to read that book or not?
I know what I don't like. I don't like when I know there's going to be an appearance of a love triangle. I feel they're so unnecessary. We know they're going to end up with
the dark-haired one.
Yeah.
Usually the dark-haired one, yes.
Like when that character pops up, you know, because their chemistry is better. I mean, sometimes it's not, but usually it is, and that's how you tell. I don't really like when the dude is a ruler of a kingdom. For some reason, it turns me off. I don't feel anything for that.
You don't like men with authority?
When you put it like that, no, I guess. I really enjoy when the female character has a lot of character. She has a personality. I enjoy a female main character, by the way. I was about to say,
why don't we start there?
Yeah.
Like, do you read exclusively books with female main characters, protagonists?
It was unintentional at first, but every series is a female main character, especially in fantasy. And I read paranormal romance too. It's just more natural for me now, and I can't really...
I think you really have to seek it out in more adult-leaning fantasy novels of a female main character. I think when you hit that YA genre, it's entirely female leads.
I know in the Brandon Sanderson, what's the name of that book? Steal Her or something? Steal something. There's a dude that's the main character, and I remember enjoying that book. But I don't know, it has to be a very specific thing. Aragon I enjoyed.
Aragon is...
I think when the male... Oh, interesting. When the male leads have pretty much the romance... In a lot of those male series that I've read, it looks like romance isn't really a thing. I mean, maybe they show interest in a certain character, but romance isn't a big thing, then...
Oh my gosh.
I don't care to read romance.
You made me think of... I don't want to jump off topic.
I mean, it's going to happen anyways.
There was this one series I read. I have to think of... It was something Crown. And it started off with a female lead, right? Mm-hmm. And you think that that's how it's going to go. It sets up exactly like a typical fantasy novel of she's a secret princess.
Yep, not the secret princess line.
Well, her mother was murdered by her advisors, and she was meant to rule, but instead her mom sends her off to live in the middle of nowhere.
That sounds so familiar.
I mean, it's the
plot for everything. That's why it sounds familiar.
Yeah, there's nothing special about it. Her magic power is like she can talk to animals or something, and she's really upset about it because it's lame as hell, which it is. And it's setting up. It's supposed to be this story of this girl who gathers forces, becomes stronger, comes into her own, and takes back her kingdom. Except it keeps cutting back to this rando dude whose whole thing is that he's hyper smart or something, and he's just good at everything, and everybody respects him, and a war breaks out, and it starts getting really weird and oddly sexist at parts of it, where she keeps talking way too much. The author keeps talking way too much about how women aren't supposed to fight because in war there's that risk of, with the guys, they'll just kill you, but with the girls, it can be worse what they'll do if you lose. Mm. And so he tells every female character around him, no, you need to go hide. Because he didn't believe that at first, but somebody told him that, and then all of a sudden he's like, yes, that's correct. And that becomes a weird undertone for a while. I did not finish this book because at one point I just couldn't take it. We kept flipping back to his POV, and he was insufferable. He's a know-it-all. And his plans are always right, and whatever he does is always right. And then always, when he suggests something, they make him the leader.
There's another element in books that I don't want. Both annoying and characters I just don't care about, or when their point of views are boring. I haven't read a multi-POV book in quite a while, but if you guys know, the Sarah J. Maas book in Throne of Glass, that series, the whatever later books, there's 15 different POVs. I think like literally.
Yes.
And the POV with Manon, whatever her name is so boring. I would literally, usually if things are boring, I'll at least skim it or like read it really quickly, but I literally flipped pages without reading it. So I don't want that in my books. I think I would not want a multi-POV, so many POVs in my ideal book.
That's sort of how I felt about Game of Thrones. This is a common criticism for Game of Thrones. I'm not revolutionary for saying it, of there's too many POVs and you really just don't care about half of them.
Yeah.
They're just so annoying. And they die way too fast for anything to actually happen. They're introduced, and then next chapter they're dead. So it just feels like, why did we have to learn about what this random squire was doing? He was just going to die 10 minutes later.
The random squire was so very important.
Exactly. But this is all a lot of what we don't like. So what are some pros? What's something that when you see it, you're like, I gotta read it.
I really enjoy an interesting, unique magic system. I mean, now I'm like purely talking about fantasy, but if we're talking about fantasy, a really unique magic system. It's just so interesting. And also world building. I do like world building. You see, Kay and I watched Dune together, along with our resident One Piece expert. We all watched Dune together, and Kay absolutely did not like Dune, and I loved
boring.
it.
It was so
I ate
boring.
it up.
It was too much exposition.
I loved
not
exposition.
enough plot.
It was great exposition.
Also, Timothée Chalamet creeps me out. I'll just say it. Something about him. It gives me Slytherin.
Are you saying like it's all Slytherin?
I don't know. He's very Tom Riddle coded.
I see what you mean. Because isn't his whole aesthetic a sickly white?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's something
He didn't look bad in Dune. I don't know why, but that dark hair worked really well on him.
That's what you think. I was still sitting there creeped out, so.
No. But also, our boy Oscar Isaac was in it, which is such a slay.
That's fair.
He was great as Duke.
Leto.
Leto?
I think so, yeah.
Something like that. It started with an L.
You paid more attention to that movie than I did, so.
I loved it. And it was part of it because I liked the director a lot. Because I found out he also directed Arrival, which I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
Obviously, Hans Zimmer, our Lord and Savior, made the music. It was so, so good. For reference, one of the tracks from that soundtrack was on my most listened in Spotify.
See, I believe that. Because you listen to a lot of soundtracks. So you like world building.
I like world building, but I do like plot. I don't like situational things. I don't think I really enjoy... I'm trying to see. Do I enjoy slice of life? I think there's certain elements, certain places I enjoy slice of life, and fantasy is not one of them.
Yeah, see, for me, it's kind of the opposite. I don't necessarily need a complicated world. I love... The best stories I've ever read have had wonderful, complex world building. But for me, it's not as important as well-written characters, well-rounded characters.
Yeah.
I have like a little checklist in my brain when a protagonist is introduced. And if they fail, like, to make every check mark, or if they don't hit enough of those checks, I don't finish the book. The number one thing for me, if I can tell if a character is well-rounded, is how much the author likes to praise them right off the bat. If the first thing the author tells you about their protagonist is how attractive they are, that's a red flag for me. Because if your main trait is how hot you are, there's almost no substance to your character. Yeah. Unless that's somehow leading into a character flaw of people don't take this character seriously because of how attractive they are. Or their attractiveness is a front for some sort of internal struggle that they're having.
I also enjoy that when characters aren't completely perfect. And I also enjoy when they're not, like, really mean. I don't know about it, because sometimes they make, especially the female leads, like, really mean for no good reason. Like, please be nicer. Like, why are you being so mean?
I don't mind it in the context of being sassy, but that's also another red flag for me, is if your main character is just all sass, they're all one-liners.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not reading a comic book.
Like, yeah, no, when there's too much of that, I enjoy it. It's funny. Like, those, like, moments of light. But it sort of at the same time takes me out of the story. And I'm like, okay, we were in this situation and now you're saying this? Like, what?
The series I was thinking of was especially guilty of this is Storm and Fury, which it's not about this character. I actually enjoyed that one because of the main character was not perfect. I think she was dealing with some illness actually throughout the course of the book. But then they introduce these side characters along the way, and I think they're the star of another series written by the same author. The instant that they introduce this character, the first thing they do is spend several pages about how beautiful she is. And the second I read that, I was like, oh, this is the protagonist of some other book. A lot of YA is guilty of that. Their main characters are always sassy and pretty, and everybody immediately likes them. They form like a little following.
Oh yeah, I do not like when everyone likes the main character so easily. Well, I'm so negative. For me, ideal books are more about having things not having things I don't like in there. Because I want to give freedom to the author. Because, like, what do I know about writing? I just know what I don't like.
Yeah.
Of course I have things I like, but...
Green flags about your main character. They immediately start off with talking about some kind of struggle they're facing, right? Instead of just being a passive observer. Someone who takes charge, I think, immediately with the plot, instead of being like, everything is happening to me.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Also, what I don't like? I don't like hypocrites. Yes. I don't like hypocrites. I hate when the main characters are hypocritical. Because oftentimes they end up saying, oh, you can't do this, and then do it.
Yeah.
They tell other characters not to do this thing. And you know what? It reminds me of, like, the whole Batman. You know, the whole Batman thing, where he tells people not to do things, but, like, it doesn't really work out, and, like...
It kind of reminded me of the new Star Wars movies. I did not watch all of them.
Oh, with Rey?
With Rey. The second one of those.
With the whole Kylo Rey situation?
No, with the... Okay, I'm going to preface this with, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I know you are.
Yeah.
So you can correct me. But no, it was... I think his name is Finn, right?
Finn, yeah, Finn.
Finn, and then there's that girl who shows up...
Rose,
yes. Where they make a whole big deal of...
Okay.
Your life is not more important than... the effort that we're making, and then she runs in at the end to save him or something, to keep him from sacrificing himself. And I'm like, this is a little bit hypocritical. Just a little. Like, you made such a big deal about this, of how important what you're doing is, but it worked out, I think. I didn't watch the last one. The eighth one was so unbelievably bad that I just couldn't.
I would have to agree with you as a Star Wars fan.
I'm not even my dad is a Star Wars fan, so we went to go see it, and...
I know, I'm always happy to get more Star Wars content, but not like that.
But for me, green flags in books, like, the ideal book for me is exactly what you're saying. If there's not too many red flags that I have to put it down. But for me, it's where the story is character-driven, that the plot is not too esoteric. So there's not little crumbs that you're setting up in one book that you have to read the whole series to finish. For example, like, if you're starting off a book and they introduce one element of a long, like, prophecy or something way off in the distant future, and you're getting through the whole book of just building up to something and then you never get the payoff.
Oh, no.
I like books where the first book can be a standalone if they're in a series. Mm-hmm. You don't have to read book 2 through 10 to understand the plot. I also love found family. That's my favorite trope.
Of course.
That's another thing. Good friendships, I think, are very, very important in a book, where you introduce characters and either they're already good friends and you get to see, like, their friendship develop, or you introduce characters that form strong bonds of friendship throughout the course of the novel. I think is also very important to me.
Yeah, but sometimes found family it can go the wrong way as well. Wow, why am I so pessimistic? Okay, let's stay on the optimistic side. I'm like, things I don't want. No.
Well, think of your favorite books, right? What are the elements of that to you that made it so good?
Interestingly enough, though I personally like it, like, I like romance in my books, a lot of the books I really love don't really have romance. Like, it's not like, oh, I like this person type thing. And they sort of get together in the background, maybe. Like, as in, like, they sort of, like, later on, like, at the end of the story, they're, like, together.
So romance isn't the focus of it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I enjoy romance. So that's very conflicting as well. But the reason why I like those books is because, now that you say it, there's a lot of plot happening in those books. Because romance doesn't take away certain elements. Oh, you know what? I like books where the romance won't stop the plot. Like, It won't, it's not, the character doesn't factor it into their decisions.
That's honestly what I prefer too. I like a really good romance. Mm-hmm. I do. And sometimes I'll read a book purely for the romance. But to me, a good book doesn't rely on the romance to tell the story.
Yes.
That's just a facet of the complex relationships that are happening in the book. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you there.
I like when a character is consistent.
In what way?
Like, if they're like initially, like, sort of good in the beginning, I like them to stay consistent. If they're not, like, a very good person, I like that arc.
That's okay. I understand what you mean.
Because it's sort of, like, wholesome at the end. You realize, like, at the end of a series, you realize, okay, our main lead has not hasn't changed. Like, they've stayed consistent to their ideals and their morals and stuff. But of course, like I said, I like that arc when that character has, like, shady morals or something.
Really? I kind of don't like that arc all that much. For me, the first thing that pops into my mind is Death Note, because we binge-watched Death Note. Back to the anime tropes. Mm-hmm. But there's this one little part where he forcefully loses his memory, like on purpose loses his memories and becomes good again. And to tell you, that was the most boring part of the whole show.
Yeah, but then but that person wasn't. No.
That was him, though. It's just he didn't have access to the Death Note anymore.
I don't like it, like,
when you look back, it's complex because that suggests that he was only this type of person. He was Kira because he had the Death Note.
Okay.
And so there's a little bit of internal conflict that all goes away when he gets his memories back. It becomes for nothing.
Well, that happened like that. I like things where it's sort of like built towards. I don't like a sudden sort of thing.
Yeah, but I
want, like, I'm kind of hypocritical because I also do like characters who, like, know nothing in the beginning. They're, like, sort of, like, mundane. And then, like, this world sort of punches them in the face. And they're introduced to this whole new, like, magic system or world or whatever. And I like them. I like to see the struggle of adjustment.
The Aragon effect.
The Aragon effect. Is that what? Yes. And also Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
I will say I kind of dislike that in some ways. The worst part of Aragon for me was how.
Do you remember what happened to Aragon?
Vaguely. I vaguely remember I remember the plot points of each book.
Really? Wow. I don't remember anything, but there's, like, a dragon and a guy. And that's the only thing I remember.
I used to reread those books. I don't remember.
I never reread it.
Everything. It's been a solid 15 plus years since I've read them. But in that time, I remember the overarching plot of each. I could give you like a one sentence summary of each book. What I remember actively hating about those books was how inexperienced Aragon was. Like, it's cool to start off with this boy who knows nothing, grows into, like, the hero of the story. But, oh my god, that process was painful to read. He's such an idiot.
I don't like when,
of the time. It's cringy. It gives me secondhand cringe.
Oh, I don't like when there's secondhand cringe in a book. I cringe in a book. I cannot handle it.
Have you ever DNF'd something because of cringe? Oh, what was it? I have to know.
I'm sure there was, like, a romance book out there that because especially in middle school, I don't think I've ever read a straight romance book.
Really?
Yeah, a straight romance book? No. I never even touched the YA section, the normal YA section of the library.
In middle school or even now?
In middle school. And honestly, even now. In middle school, like I told you, Airhead was, even then, there was like a body swapping element to that.
Speaking of cringe.
Like, I don't know how I read that.
I mean, I tried rereading Airhead recently.
Yeah.
And it was painful.
Yeah, so I can't touch
that's
pure romance.
Airhead by Meg Cabot.
Yeah. That's why, as much as I want to read pure romance, there's always, like, embarrassing situations. She always, because I read female main characters, right? So she always, like, embarrasses herself in front of people or, like, the main lead. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. I've read a couple.
I, like, shut the book and I'm like, no. And sometimes I, like, DNF it.
I think for me, the problem with romance, or books that are driven purely by romance, and the reason I don't read a lot of them, is that the characters tend to be problematic. Not always. Mm-hmm. There's a couple that I've read that are fine all the way through, especially the ones that are geared more towards middle school teenager level, because there are pure romance. I remember reading The Statistical Probability of True Love at First Sight, and that was just a cute, and they're making a show out of it too.
Oh yeah, I heard about it.
But that one was just cute all the way through, and there was an interesting enough background plot there. But it was about the romance. It was about the two of them. So I think that was okay. When I think of really bad, I read Bridgerton because I love the show. And oh my god, Simon is such a red flag. Like, such a red flag.
I mean, Daphne, she's a red flag too, isn't she?
In the books? books.
I don't know about the books, but in the show she definitely is.
She does some red flaggy type stuff.
She is the red flag. If you do red flag, orange flag maybe?
She definitely does some questionable things. Like the part where she low-key does stuff without his consent.
That's what it is. That's red flag.
Kid.
I'm sorry, but that's red flag material.
Yeah, that's a red flag. That's low-key assault. High-key assaults.
It is assault.
Because she didn't have his consent to do that. But he also lied to her, so...
But just because he did it to him, or her, doesn't...
It's not the same. It's not fair. In the books, though...
Is it worse? I heard it's worse in the books, and they made it better in the show. Better, in quotes.
What she did or what he did? Because...
Both.
She, I think, does the same thing in the books that she does in the show. His reaction to her in the books is different than the show. His motivation in the books for sort of running away from her was because he was embarrassed about his stutter, I think. And he was more concerned about that than what she did to him. I think that the show plays it off a little differently. His attitude, he says some problematic shit in the books. He does some problematic things in the books. There's one part where he basically tells her, you understand that technically you're my property, so you aren't allowed to tell me no, right? Which is all kinds of...
In conclusion,
watch the show, throw the books in fire.
You don't need to watch the first season. It's not required.
Excuse me.
They don't even show up again. Maybe Daphne shows up again.
Excuse me, but Simon.
Okay, Simon's hot, but, like, it's not as good as, like, the second season.
It's not as good as the second season. We love our girl Kate.
You'll watch it purely for Simon's face. Like,
yes.
The actor's face for Simon. For that.
So that's why I don't read a lot of romance. But romance to me is not a green or a red flag. It's just there. To me, I think a badly written romance will make me drop a book no matter how good it is, because the cringe factor is simply too much for me to move past.
Yeah. You know what? I like when a couple in a book is not too lovey-dovey.
Really?
Yeah, they're sort of like... No, especially they're not too lovey-dovey. Because in fantasy situations, it's really life or death. Like, it's the end of the world type thing. And then they're being all lovey-dovey each other. I'm like, you've got shit to do. Come on.
I know. Sometimes they pick and it's always the worst moments. The worst moments for them to be romantic of like, oh, you just found out that your parent that you thought was dead was actually alive, but then they just died in front of you again. Let's have sex.
Yes,
that makes me so upset. That happened.
And also, like, when like a character is like sacrificing themselves for something, they like kiss. I'm like, sacrifice yourself faster already. Bad things are happening. You need to sacrifice yourself faster. You don't have time for this kiss. Go, go, go.
Yes. Plus, you've just been fighting.
Yeah,
like you don't know what's.
It's gross.
The blood splatter.
It's unsanitary. Be safe, y'all.
Someone's getting mono.
No, more than mono. God, no, it's gross. It's gross.
Yeah. So romance is not something that you look for in an ideal book, but I think in my ideal book there is
romance. Yeah,
there is a romance. I think that is something that
it adds a little like a little spice.
Yes, spice. Masala.
Masala, the pre-made masala, the garam masala.
So I think we could probably talk about this for
a very long
time. But I think
we probably like missed out on a lot of things too.
Yes,
but it's fine.
I think there could be like a part 2. And I also think that the things that make up our ideal books is something that we'll talk about more and more as we talk about the different books that we are reading.
Yeah, like we'll pick and choose things we like or don't like.
Yeah, maybe we'll start a master list.
Oh, we should do that.
Yeah. But I think it's time to talk about our last segment, which is low expectations. Which is either low expectations for us to actually commit to what we're going to read or watch or whatever, or low expectations of the things that we're looking out to read upcoming. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just the lower your expectations are, the more you can be surprised by how good it is.
Yeah, so low expectations are a good thing.
Yes. So what are we going to try to read in this week or watch in this week?
Well, we mentioned before we're buddy reading the Innkeeper series. I actually have read the entirety of the series, but I'm rereading it again with Kay, who's reading it for the first time.
Yes. So I will be trying to read the second book in that series. We read the first book. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything except for Sean Evans, which I've talked about him to you many times.
We will do a whole, like, when we finish reading the series, we'll do a whole episode on it later.
Probably, but Sean Evans gives me rage. I love the world building of it. I think that it's a very unique concept of combining sci-fi and fantasy in a really interesting way. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to reading the next book, actually.
I'm glad.
I'll probably also be reading the next Kate Daniels.
Yeah, the Kate Daniels.
Yes.
I thought about rereading it with you, but I've reread that series like 2 or 3 times already, and it's so long that I can't.
You just haven't memorized.
Yeah, I'll just do it from memory or read like a plot summary on a Goodreads review somewhere. And what else?
Maybe you can watch the One Piece anime for comparison.
I'll watch. I was thinking of watching the first episode. I don't know. Some about anime, like, I can't get myself into it. I've tried, like, I've watched a couple episodes of Bleach. I've watched. You know that Sword Art Online, whatever that.
Oh, talk to me about SAO, bro. Listen to me. Watch SAO Abridged. It is actively better than the anime. They fix a lot of the terrible writing choices the anime makes, and it's really funny. It's on YouTube. Watch it.
All right, maybe. I'm gonna say all right, but it's highly unlikely.
Watch it. I think your problem is that you're trying to watch too much shonen.
What's that? You need I've heard of it, but I'm not really sure.
It's more geared towards younger men, like teenage boys. It's for teenage boys. So it has a lot of those elements of just generic fighting. There's a group of characters, they train to get stronger and face the next villain.
You know what? I feel like I did watch Naruto when I was like so young.
Yeah, Naruto's
so young because I have memories of like characters and stuff. I'm like, wait, I've seen that character, so it looks like I have watched it. But
Naruto is
maybe I'll try getting into anime again. I mean, I probably won't, but I'll try.
But yeah, Naruto is like your classic shonen. Fairy Tail, also shonen.
Really?
Bleach,
that's so interesting.
One Piece, all of these fall into that category.
Why am I doing this to myself?
But there's really good anime that I think falls more in line with sort of the themes that we like. Oh, I completely forgot to tell you. Did you know, have you read Why Raeliana Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion?
That's on my watch list.
Yeah.
I didn't know they
made an anime out of that.
Because I don't think I ever finished that.
It's really good.
I've been wanting to, since today it's like the fall and Thanksgiving and like cozy time, I wanted to read, what is it? Something in Lattes? The cozy book.
I know what you're talking about.
Teas and lattes, whatever it is. I'm sure the people will know what I'm talking about. It's
unlikely. You just said lattes.
Oh, it's not latte?
No. It is something. I know what you're talking about with where they're like
a fighter retires or whatever.
Yeah, with the orc on the cover.
Yes,
I know what you're talking about. I can't tell you what the name of it is. No,
it's by Legends and Lattes.
There we go. Legends. Yes, I'm interested in reading that too. It looks very cute.
Yeah, and Legends and Lattes. I've been trying to get into cozy fantasy. I haven't started yet, but I've been trying. Also, cozy mystery, and usually cozy mystery like takes place back in the day for some reason. Let me look up the name of the book. I need to look on my Libby. Libby's so great.
Oh, I see Crescent City at the top of your list.
That's not going to be in my while it is a low expectation, I will not be reading it anytime soon.
Your expectations for that second book should be in the garbage, but I need you to read it. So maybe I'll remind you.
Like One Day Over the Rainbow. Right, A Treacherous Curse by Deanna Rayburn. I've been wanting to read that. It's supposedly like mystery, romance. Oh wait, actually the first one in the series is called A Curious Beginning. I think I might DNF. I've been reading a book called Naked in Death. I think I'm going to DNF it. It's time to go.
Have they not solved the murder?
No, I just haven't read it.
All right.
Like I'm how much I'm a certain percent of the way through. I think I'm like less than 30 or maybe 30% of the way through, and I'm DNFing it.
All right.
Oh, Hex Hall, I've been wanting to reread because you reread it, and I've been wanting to reread it.
We could fully just talk about Hex Hall for an hour. I love that series so much. Sophie Mercer, the ideal protagonist, even though she's not beautiful, but she is that sassy, overly one-liner type deal.
But that's fine. That's fine. It's YA, so like I can accept it. I can accept it. But there was also something I was gonna watch. I wanted to watch the Winx Saga, Fate the Winx Saga.
Oh my god, I still haven't seen the second season.
I haven't seen the first season.
You didn't grow up watching the Winx Club though, right?
I would watch episodes of it, but it wasn't a part of my childhood. Ben 10 was more a part of my childhood.
Because what I'll say about Fate is if you go into it having watched the Winx Club and expect it to be that, you will be disappointed.
Yeah, no, I'm not going into it for that. I just know there's like, it's like a sort of fantasy thing and there's romance in it. And
yes,
it takes place in a school. I have thoughts about sometimes I feel the school setting is unnecessary.
Bloom is insufferable.
Oh, I heard
the
that.
Live action, but in the TV show,
like I loved
she was cool.
I loved what I watched of the Wings.
Great. So I guess those are the expectations that we've set for ourselves. Whether we'll actually read or watch any of the things we said is highly debatable. But
yeah, we'll probably end up watching or reading something completely different.
And we'll talk about it next time.
So maybe this should be called like lies or something.
The lies we tell ourselves.
The lies we tell ourselves and y'all.
But thank you everybody for joining us and listening. I hope it wasn't too hard to listen to. You can follow us
on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Our handles are at Less Than a Day Pod. If you want to send us any book recs, you can email us, and that's lessthanaDayPod@gmail.com. Or you can DM us on like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, basically. And we'll see y'all next time. I hope you enjoyed.